going on, Dolphins? It's your boy Dillon. I got, I believe, one more update for you today. I don't think anything else will be coming out. It's getting kind of late in the day. But there was an announcement of another signing by the Dolphins. Real quick though, just to let you know, there are reports that we actually have interest in Marquette King, veteran free agent punter. Where was he with last? I want to say, was it with the Raiders? I want to say with the Raiders. I don't remember offhand. But Marquette King, free agent punter, there is interest. The signing, though, is another AAF refugee, and I believe it's American Alliance of Football, is what AAF stands for, I believe. And, you know, they disbanded, basically, so they didn't last very long. I guess it wasn't going that well, and so you know, those guys are looking for jobs. So it is another, you know, bargain barrel kind of thing. But they did sign Jaron Elliott. He's an outside linebacker slash pass rusher, which that is really good. I mean, I don't know anything about him really. You know, he's an unknown commodity. I mean, look, you know, the thing is picking up a lot of these guys from like the AAF and like some of these, like, random, like, out of the woodwork places that we're pulling people. It's like, it's almost the equivalent of like undrafted free agents, right? So like, you know, they're not good enough to get drafted or to be in the NFL or whatever, but you got holes to fill and their bodies around, so, you know, why not give them a shot in camp? But that is good because we obviously do need more pass rush help. We need more D-line help. We could, you know, possibly use a little assistance at the linebacker position, you know, if we're going to be playing a hybrid 4-3-3-4 defense. And if he's an outside linebacker slash pass rusher, that is good for that scheme. And he could be, you know, versatile and, you know, whatever. And he did apparently have 7.5 sacks, I guess, in the AAF, as long as it lasted. And apparently that led the AAF. So there's a potential good pickup there. Here's another thing, too, that I want, you know, I'm trying to get you guys to understand, right? So, right, because in my last video, you know, I responded a little bit to everybody being like, oh, you know, so what if, you know, whatever, if they come from this place, that place, who says they can't be good, or, you know, whatever. I'm not saying that, but here's the thing though. This coaching staff has to take those guys that don't have experience. A lot of them haven't even played in the NFL or haven't played in a minute. You know, they weren't good enough for, you know, whatever. In other words, you know, if they were playing in the AAF, that probably means they weren't really good enough to make it into like the draft or whatever and get picked up, or even as an undrafted free agent. It's kind of almost like a supplementary free agency thing. It's a really unique situation. This doesn't happen very often, almost never, because when do you have a startup football league that goes under and then you have a bunch of, you know, players from those you know, teams available? So it's kind of a unique situation, but, you know, I mean, who knows? He could end up you know, being wonderful, but it's going to take time and they're going to have to develop him. And unfortunately, you know, the odds are extremely stacked against us. When you take all the information, all the data, all the facts, all the context, everything, unfortunately, the odds are stacked against us in the sense that, you know, there's not a single Dolphin fan or person on the planet that should have an expectation of having a good season for at least a few years, frankly, right? Not a single one of us should have the expectation that we're gonna, you know, make it to the playoffs or be competitive and, you know, get to the Super Bowl over the next few years. In fact, it's highly more likely or highly likely and much more likely that we will end up having subpar, sub 500 seasons for at least a couple years, considering everything. Now, again, the problem is, so, if it, and this ties into, the comments that Kenyon Drake made about, guys being ready to run through a wall for Brian Flores. That's all well and good. And if he sets his culture now in year one, it doesn't get set 100%. It's got to take time, and he's got to build it. But if he sets it now and starts building it over the next few years, and if these players that they bring in that nobody fucking knows about, these bargain bin guys, whatever, and then the guys that they draft, all this, if they bring all these guys in, right, and then we have a few bad seasons, and then the ownership and the fan base gets all pissed off and impatient and then wants to fire him, well, then you've just wasted, all of that time and energy and investment you put into building a culture and to developing guys and to getting the right guys that you want and the kind of guys that you want in the building and so on and so forth, right? I'm not one of those guys that bitches about the fact per se that a coach or a front office guy is bringing in guys that he knows or is familiar with. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. Now that there are other factors that go into it that you would use to help make that determination. Like, for example, in the case of Adam Gase and Jay Cutler, I get it, but I wouldn't have taken Jay Cutler. I would have taken Colin Kaepernick, but there were other extenuating circumstances that obviously made that not a possibility. Now, some of these guys, for example, that have been brought into the front office, they may be great, for whatever reasons, have good resumes, so on and so forth, but it is more heads in the room and it could cause problems and so on and so forth. So, but they're all familiar with each other, right? So theoretically, they're going to all get along, but that's not the case, and they need time. And so if they end up getting fired after a few bad seasons, well, then you've just wasted all that. Not only that, but then you waste, years of draft picks, right? So not just the capital, but also, like, let's take Minkah Fitzpatrick, for example, right? We drafted him last year. We expected he's going to be a stud. The whole NFL world thinks that Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be a stud safety. But we had a down year last year. We went 7-9, right? And then, well, so what if we do that or worse this year and that or worse the next year and the year after that? Well, then you've basically wasted all of Minkah Fitzpatrick's rookie contract. Xavier Howard needs a new contract and he's getting into the prime of his career, right? So like, you have all of these different factors that need to be taken in, weighed appropriately, and then that stuff leads to the evaluation. And so, it's, look, I get it, man. It's a super tough business to, to deal with, to handle, to evaluate, to navigate through. But I mean, there are smart ways to do things, and, most of the things that they've done so far, don't really bode well, and I'm not very impressed with. But again, look, for all of these idiots out there that are like, oh, you're just hating on them because of this and you're not giving them a chance. No, I disagree with a lot of the stuff that they're doing. I don't, think that philosophically, ideologically, fundamentally, like whatever, I don't think what they're doing is going to create success now. Certainly, it's almost assured that we're going to have a bad year this upcoming season. It's about as guaranteed as it could get. And, I mean, we could all be surprised, but if you're being honest and if you're being realistic, we can't, that's why I said we can't expect, if we're all surprised and it's a great year, wonderful. And I hope I'm wrong, but and I'm giving them a chance. Look, I said it. I've said it time and time again. I think that even if, God forbid, we don't win a game for the next 3 years, okay, this regime should get the 5 years, the full 5 years. Flores has the contract. They're bringing in unknown guys that they, apparently see potential in. Well, let's give them a chance to develop those guys and to see if they really can be, contributors on this team. Let's see if they really can be successful. right? I mean, obviously everybody's going to be super happy if somewhere out of fucking nowhere this team manages to make it to the playoffs next year, and then from then on we're just, you know, perennially competitive. But I mean, that's super unrealistic. And if that doesn't happen, which is far more likely, we need to be able to give them the proper amount of time. And furthermore, they need to prove that they can do these things. We shouldn't just give them, you know, the credit before they earn it, you know? And it is perfectly fair to criticize it. That's like, I know I tie politics in a lot, or often, regularly. I try not to, but I mean, it's very similar, and you can't, unfortunately, you can't avoid politics in life, period. Politics are in everything. I was in the Navy for 4 years. The military is super political. Every damn job I've ever had elements of politics. Everything. Life is political. Unfortunately, in a lot of facets, in a lot of ways and senses, but it is. But it's that'd be like, you know, having a you know, a politician that, you know, you just like, you're like, okay, well, I elect you, and, you know, I want you to do all these things, but, you know, whatever the case may be, because you don't have, you know, the House, the Senate, and the presidency, you know, you might get a little pushback from the other party, but, you know, because of that, and you didn't get to do exactly what I wanted you to, you know, blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, look, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is they need to be given time, but, oh, I'm sorry, my real point about the politician thing is okay, fine, they got to come in, but you can disagree with them too, right? You need to give them an opportunity. You need to give them an opportunity to prove that they can do the things that they've said that they were going to do. And you also need to hold them accountable, right? And it is perfectly fine to disagree with them. You don't have to agree with everything that, you know, whatever your team does, or your boss does, or your brother or sister, your parents, or your spouse, or whatever. You don't always have to agree with it, and it is fine and fair to criticize, right? As long as it's constructive, and as long as, you know, people are respectful, open-minded, and, you know, following a path of logic and reason and facts, you know, things that are rooted in fact. Anyway, so I definitely went off on, you know, a tangent. I know I do it all the time. It's great. It's, you know, hey, look, I love to talk, if that isn't clear. And that's part of the reason why I made this channel and do these videos, because I love to talk, and I love the Dolphins, and I love to talk about the Dolphins. So, I know. Bear with me for anybody who does watch it. As I progress along with my channel and stuff, I am going to continually evolve and make it better, and I'm going to find, you know, better ways to structure this as well as I go into the future. Unfortunately, I am always super busy, so it's hard to pour a lot of time and effort into this, but I do as much as I possibly can for you guys. So with that, I'm going to end this. I hope you guys enjoy my videos. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section, and as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.